Welcome back to the Leadership Podcast for Victory Sulfur. So excited. Hope you enjoyed the last one that we had with Pastor Larry. As we previewed last week that we were going to do a case study with Jess. He got to hear it because he was switching last week. So Jess, we are going to open up your life to the world.
I'm so excited.
You're so excited. So the whole point of doing this is, I believe as a leader, the best thing that you could do probably at least once a year, maybe more. I would say 3 times a year, once a quarter, 4 times, is to really audit yourself, audit your energy, like what gives you energy, what takes away your energy, an energy audit. Did you do an energy audit with us? Were you here yet?
Yeah, I did.
And then the other one is, I believe in Strength Finder test.
Right. So the energy audit was pretty much just everything you do in a day, and you're basically classifying if it matters or if it doesn't.
So a plus, if it gives you energy, like, oh my gosh, I live for this, you give it a +2.
Oh, okay.
And then if you're like, I enjoy it, but it doesn't make me wake up in the morning, it's a +1. If you're like, it's a 0.
I don't think I did that. We did day.
I don't think you did.
Day audits.
Okay, so
Like
an energy audit
we do.
is something that you should do and figure out what gives you energy and what takes away your energy.
Okay.
And then what you do is you make sure as you're scheduling your day, you don't put 3 things. Well, the goal of the -2 is to delegate those to somebody that gives them positive. But you don't want to put 3 -1 activities back to back.
Yeah.
Because that's when you go home and you're like,
drained. Yeah.
dang, my day was terrible. But at the same time, you can't live off of +2s.
Yeah.
Because that's unrealistic. So you audit your day and then you schedule your day where you put a -1, then you go back to a +2.
Interesting.
And you're only going to have a couple of +2s in your life.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you're an administrator, you may love entering data into the computer.
Oh my gosh, it's like.
But that may
That's
be
like
a
-10 for
well,
me.
-2. But yes, I agree. So energy audits are great. Strength audits are great. Weaknesses audits are great, which is what we're talking about. So if you never have taken a Strength Finder test, that would be one that I would definitely recommend taking, because the Strength Finder allows you to see your strengths and your weaknesses. Which, do you find it easier to list your strengths or your weaknesses?
It's really changed. So pretty much before I got on staff at Victory, it was really easy to list my strengths. But the more y'all have kind of like helped me grow in leadership, the more I'm like, wow, I have a lot to figure out. And I guess just the more responsibility you have, because I feel like leadership, other than influence, is really responsibility. And so like the more responsibility that you have, the more the pressure shows the cracks, the leaks, the holes. And so right now I focus more on my weaknesses probably. It's just easier to I don't beat myself up about it. I'm just like, okay, I feel like I'm pretty good about weaknesses. I'm like, okay, here's what happened. This is how I need to work on it next time. So right now, that's the long answer of I see my weaknesses more.
So I remember being part of a high school small group, and we went around and listed our weaknesses and strengths, and no one could talk about their strengths. And I don't know if it's because everybody didn't want to feel prideful, because pride's a
maybe
sin.
So, yeah.
You don't want to be like, I'm really good at this, and then someone's like, no, you're not. You know what I'm saying that?
Yeah, because our people would definitely be like, you're not. I'm sorry,
and
love you, but you're not.
And honestly, I'm probably a little more difficult to work with. Same thing. There's a reason why I quit playing team sports, is because I'm better at individual sports, because I'm very hard on myself. So the way I am to myself, I feel like I am to the team.
Yeah.
And I don't care so much of what I do well. I want to know what I do bad, because I want to be better. And that's just this underlying thing. But as a guy who my love language is words of affirmation, every now and then I need a little attaboy. I need like, hey, you killed that. You did a good job. And that puts wind in my sails to start growing under my weaknesses.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line of what you said too, though, because I know a lot of people who beat themselves up more than they learn from their mistakes. And it's like, the point is not to show your weaknesses so that you're like beating yourself up. It's just to grow. And so I think we do need those attaboys to keep us in the,
Right.
hey, you're good, just keep growing side of things.
Right.
So
the whole point of this podcast, this series that we're doing, the leadership podcast, is to build on your strengths and under your weaknesses.
Right.
And so give me,
I have 2 for both in mind. I have more, we can find more.
okay, well, I called your
sure.
wife.
No.
I called your wife and I asked her what your weaknesses were. So I'm really excited. And then I asked your dad.
Dang. Okay. This is like an intervention.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're gonna really dissect Jess right here. So
Perfect.
let's talk about this. You are terrible. No, I'm joking.
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm the worst.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about your strengths. So what do you feel? I didn't ask them what your strengths were.
Great.
Because I feel like we've talked about your strengths. We did the strength finder test with you. The thinking wavelength, I'm all about tests, by the way. So if you ever wanted to know what test to take, email me, because I got now some of them are pricey.
Yeah.
Some of them are free. I know this is a church podcast. I know this is going to be very controversial. I love Enneagram. I don't love it. It's a useful tool for me.
Sure.
And it helps me communicate with other people.
Yeah.
If I know your number, then I know what makes you go, and I know what makes you insecure.
Yeah, you kind of have a peek into someone's world when the more tests they take and are able to communicate that.
Absolutely. So I'm all about that. Now, again, do I know the Holy Spirit changes people? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So we're not...
So do kids and marriage and people.
So we're not discrediting anything scriptural. I believe finding out who God made you is one of the most important things that you could do, and finding out your spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
So with that being said, here we go. Your strengths. List what you feel is your number one strength. Awkward pause.
My number one probably is, I feel like,
why are you so scared to say it?
Because I have 2 that I'm not sure which one is better.
Okay, then list both of them.
Okay, so I feel like I'm pretty good with people.
No, you're not.
Generally.
Yeah,
even if I lack in something, I really enjoy like connecting with people. Like Jade talks about this. Like, she'll look at me when I'm having a conversation with someone and I'm fully invested in what they're saying. Like I don't say anymore in passing, because in Sunday mornings we just buzz around as pastors. So I don't say anymore like when I'm passing people like, hey, how you doing? Because they I either get stopped and I'm like, oh, I really need to listen. If it's not I'm doing good, I really need to listen. So I generally on Sunday mornings, I'm like, hey, it's great to see you. It's great to see you. Great to see you. Great to see you. So that when I do ask, how are you doing? I can actually give them attention. So, and I feel like I've learned that from my mom. So I feel like that's a strength, even if people like me or they don't. I feel like I naturally bend more towards connecting with people.
Gotcha.
So I feel like that's a strength. Even if I mess up, I'm still seeking for connection with someone.
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
All right, what's your next one?
And then the next one is.
I'm going to write this down. All right.
Is flying by the seat of my pants.
That's your strength?
That is my strength. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically in urgency or making things happen, I don't know why. I kind of thrive sometimes in urgent chaos. I feel like Dakota's probably shaking his head no or something. But
Dakota's switching today.
Yeah. But no, I really do feel like people skills and what's the word? Not urgency, but making things happen and work.
Right.
I've been in a lot of situations that they just worked at the end of the day. They weren't planned. Like a kid, I'm the kid's pastor. So a kid passed out or threw up. These are real things that happen. And the day still ended really well. We had their parents, we got everything. They were okay, all these things. And yeah, so I don't know. I feel like that is a strength of making things happen in urgent situations. Yeah.
All right. So now that's your strengths.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and talk about this. So how can you build on those strengths? What's some practical things? This is where we're going to take what Pastor Larry said last week and then get into the practical. How can we do that? So how can you build on being a people person?
Building on being a people person. I actually heard today from Craig Rochelle, he probably stole it from somebody, but growth happens from your no's not your nose, but like what you say no to, not what you say yes to. So like I can give people more of me as I say no more to things that aren't urgent, to don't really matter. Things that if I audited my time and energy, like I really don't need to be doing these things. These are just extra things that fill up my day or whatever. And so being able to delegate or even weed out some of my calendar and stuff like that to where I can actually give more to people.
So I think John Maxwell, so a way that I tend to grow on a strength and also grow under my weakness is books.
Yeah.
So you talked about Craig Rochelle, so that would be like a podcast and messages. John Maxwell, I think he was the one that wrote the book, The Power of the No.
Okay.
So that would be a way to grow on that.
Yeah.
And the other way to me to grow in that is to delegate it.
Right.
To teach what you know about being a people person to somebody else, because what you do is when you train somebody to do the job.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking more like job now, but when you train somebody to do something, you actually become better at it.
Yeah.
I know whenever I train people to video and to like edit and stuff, I pick up tricks that I forgot about.
Right.
And so it actually helps me edit faster and more efficient. So
and if I can like allow someone to be in their strength, in their gift, like if I can delegate something that I'm not good at, then I can focus on my strength, which is connecting with people and stuff like that. So, because I'll get lost in the weeds so quickly, like especially when I stepped into the leadership of the kids ministry, I had to figure out, I had to have my hands in everything to figure out how the check-in and check-out process worked, how admin stuff worked, and all these things. So I purposely had to do that. But if I don't delegate that, I will stay so like bound to so many details that I can't actually thrive in my strengths. So
okay, so fly by the seat of your pants. That is not, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if that's something you can grow in. I think that's innate. Gotcha. I think flying by the seat of your pants and doing things on the fly and doing them well.
Yeah.
I don't think that can be as taught. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But so there's taught leadership and there's innate in leadership, natural born versus taught.
Right.
There are natural born leaders.
Right.
There's natural born thinkers. There are natural born get it done people. It's just in your DNA. It's the way that God made you.
Yeah.
And I believe that flying by the seat of your pants is something that you could pick up on by being around those people and pick up on those traits. But there's some people who they can't.
Right.
Like they have to be organized first before they can do that.
Right.
So I don't know if you can actually grow in that because I believe that's just a natural gift that some of us have.
The only thing, now we're getting into my weaknesses, but like the only thing that I've heard that you could grow is, what's it called? Preparation prepares you for spontaneity.
Right.
And so if I'm only spontaneous at this level or like fly by the seat of my pants at this level, if I prepare more, then I have more room to be spontaneous at another level of leadership or efficiency or something like that. So
because the way I grow, this is the way I would grow in that because I do feel like that's one of my strengths as well. And the way I've grown in it is I think about everything that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah.
I always think about the negative. Like, okay, if this happens, we're going to do this. And as a guy who owns a film business, I have to do that. So at every film shoot I go to, I always have a backup camera.
Right.
Because you never know when one's going to get stolen.
Yeah.
That we just all had. And you never know when a microphone's going to fail.
Yeah.
And when you're going to these big corporate clients, you can't say, oh, sorry.
Right.
No, they're paying you to think ahead and be prepared. And so I feel like that's one way to fly by is think of all possible outcomes and have a solution already in your head.
For sure.
What for? So that's a way to grow on that strength.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Weaknesses. Here we go.
Weaknesses.
Do you want to list yours and then I'll tell what your wife said?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, go
it's
ahead.
Probably,
Let's go. Number one.
The same. Number one, naturally, I am the biggest procrastinator in the world.
Ding, ding, ding. We got a winner. That's what your wife said.
Yeah, I'm like, it's so bad. But okay, let's talk about this. The innate strength that I was born with, I had to be good under pressure because my weakness is procrastination. So I had to develop that or I literally wouldn't be a good person in society, like a contributing person, you know? And so
excuses for the weakness.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, pretty much. I had to grow in that. So procrastination,
So what would be your number 2 weakness?
Organization. Well, organization. I have another one too. So organization and then communication. Literally all the worst things you could have as you grow.
Okay,
but
so your dad, let's define this communication because your dad said that.
communication.
Yes. So what do you think? Define what that means in your head.
I'm really glad I'm in touch with like what's going on because
Yeah.
that would have been really embarrassing if I listened to some and they listened.
And
to
here's the way to find. Maybe we should have done this first. So maybe we're going in reverse order. The way to find the reason why I asked your wife and your dad is because the way to find and identify your weakness. Number one, most of you may not know what your weakness is.
right.
So you need a trusted confidant,
Yeah.
a trusted boss, a trusted dad, a wife who can see your blind spots.
Right.
And we talked about this last week about a spiritual mentor who can see your blind spots. And a wife is a great one.
Yeah.
Spouse, if you're, married, dad, a
Right.
mom, like a pastor, all those people are
Employer,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, somebody like that who generally cares about you
Yeah.
and who wants to see you better yourself.
Like it's not just to rag on you. But,
Right.
yeah.
Because we know those people like, oh, you suck at this. Like, and that's not what we want to do. So what we're doing here is what I would do in your office.
Right.
And we've done this before.
Yeah.
So we're just now showing the world what we do.
Right.
And so define communication.
Communication.
What part of communication is your weakness? Because
Yeah.
are you talking about social media posts?
No.
Because that's communication. Are you talking about emails, memos? Are you just talking about communication in general? Or stage communication?
Oh, yes, definitely stage communication, which I have grown in exponentially. Thank the Lord for our
Yes, you have.
communication class because I'm very scatterbrained by nature. But all these things that we've listed are things that I have extreme focus on. And so I'm able to, we'll get to that at the end. Anyway, but communication, definitely, I had to learn how to speak linear so that I can actually give something to people as far as a message goes or a teaching. Like, because naturally I just like throw a bunch of stuff out there and then connect the dots at the end. And I'm like, see, this is why the Bible like goes back and forth. And they're like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so there's that. And then communication, I think I naturally don't like to be micromanaged because I'm good under pressure. So I'm like, hey, just leave me alone. I got it. So I don't like to, hey, did you get this? I'm just making sure you got this because as a leader, you really need to communicate like
Right.
this is what we expect of you and
Right.
how is that going? You inspect
Yeah.
what you expect
Yeah.
or whatever.
I'm about
and
to
so
sneeze. Sorry.
You're about to
I'm about
sneeze?
to sneeze.
I know. I'm like, dang, man, this is really getting to you.
Oh.
But
Oh, Jess, you're making me cry.
Yeah. So I think I really fight against, I don't want to be perceived as an overbearing person.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, God, this is probably so annoying, but hey, just making sure you're ready for Sunday. And they're like, no, thanks for letting me know. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad I communicated with you. Naturally, I don't enjoy getting in other people's business. So that I feel like I
got you.
encroaching on, or as another man, like, dude, I got it. Just leave me alone. Okay. Sorry. So I feel like I don't want to impose too much of my world onto other people
Right.
when I over communicate with things.
So this
if
is
that
the
makes
reason
sense.
why communication as your position and our position is so important.
Right.
Because communication is honestly probably one of my weaknesses when it comes to team. I don't play team sports. I do individual sports
Right.
because team. And honestly, what changed my heart about this is I heard a quote one time: "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. Go
Right.
with a group."
Right.
I like to go fast. Ricky Bobby.
Ricky Bobby.
I like to go fast. And sometimes people slow me down.
Yeah.
But what I learned is there's so much, Jesus didn't go alone.
Yeah.
He walked slowly through the crowd. It never
Right.
says that Jesus ran anywhere.
Yeah.
And when he chose to ride an animal, he rode a very slow donkey.
Yeah.
And
pretty
so
much.
I would have got the racehorse, the Arabian racehorse out there,
Right.
but he didn't do that. And so we talked about this last week with your grandfather, walk slowly through the crowd, which is not a natural thing. But I do the same thing with my communication. And it's happened, especially in the video world, production world. I feel like you should already think like me.
Yeah.
And so I can,
Yeah.
and honestly, even Nakota, who is really good at this, he's like, wait, slow down. Wait, what? How did you get from here to here?
Right.
And so as things I'm really passionate about, I cannot communicate because I feel like you should know.
Right.
But things that I'm like, oh yeah, let's just slow it down. So I've had to learn to slow down my train of thought.
Right.
But yours is genetic.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
your uncle, who is my youth pastor, I will never forget this. I'm talking to him, and I'm talking. This is when Kobe and Shaq, like 2001, winning the championship, and I used to watch every Lakers game. Huge fan of the Lakers back then.
Yeah.
And I was talking about the Lakers, and he's listening to me. And next thing you know, he starts bringing up a fish that's in the ocean. And I remember stopping him, going, how in the world?
Yeah.
I'm talking about Kobe and Shaq, and you just brought up a fish. How did you get there? This is what he said.
Yeah.
He goes, when you said the Lakers, I thought about Los Angeles. Then I thought Los Angeles and right by the beach, Santa Monica. Oh my God, the ocean, surfing. Oh, sharks, fish. Oh my gosh, there's this fish that lives only in that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like.
I do the same.
So yours
thing.
is genetic.
Yeah, it's so bad.
I had the same problem with Pastor Rick.
Yeah.
So let's talk about building under that, growing under that weakness. So what is a practical step that you can do? And let's use the communication one, because I feel like everybody needs to grow in communication. We're not talking about preaching on stage.
Right.
We're not talking about that. Communicating with team.
Right.
Because if you're watching this, chances are I don't care who you are, you're leading somebody.
For sure.
Whether you're a parent leading your kids, an employer leading the employees, pastor to whatever, you're leading. So we're talking about team leadership.
Right.
Team communication. So what's one way or a couple ways that you can grow under that?
The first way, I think, is just from a basic level of communication. Like if you're needing to just help someone understand something, is actually to take time and filter your words in your head before you say it.
So slow down
and filter your words, because I know you're an external thinker. I think I'm more on the side of external thinker.
Let's define that. So external thinker is a lot of people are pensive and they think before they talk.
Right.
I talk before I think.
Right.
And so in one 5-minute sitting, you're going to think I'm Jekyll and Hyde. You're going to think because I disagree with myself all the time.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like, let's do this. And then everybody's on the same page. And everybody's on the same page. And all of a sudden I'll flip the script and be like, no, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Because as I'm verbally processing, thinking out loud, I filter what's a good idea and what's a bad idea.
And I do the same thing. And I think especially as we're leading people, taking time to at least kind of get the principle of what you want to communicate and just hit that one thing, because it is so easy. I connect so much to what you said about my Uncle Rick. Like, I'll come in and just start going down rabbit trails, and next thing I know, we just had an hour-long meeting and nothing happened.
Right.
And so being very concise when you're leading or when you're communicating as a leader, and so you can give people clarity, because the more words you use, the muddier the idea is going to get. They're going to walk away like, wait, we just talked about 10 things instead of the one thing you need.
And your dad is, he knows this.
He's the master at that.
Whenever he's bad at it. That's what I'm going with.
Really?
Whenever he is very insecure and he's insecure about what he's talking about, he uses more words.
Okay, I'm thinking he'll come in with like 5 things that he wants to hit, and he'll boom, boom, boom.
So it's funny that we're talking about your dad right now, is because just before we started filming this, we were talking about something that happens to happen Sunday, some announcements. Well, he is your dad is, his strength is he's a go guy.
Yeah.
Give him one job and he's going to do it well.
Right.
But when we start adding, hey, don't forget this, don't forget that, it muddies the water for him.
Right.
So one of the tips I gave him today is there's nothing wrong with having a note card. Yeah. So if you find yourself being a little too maybe verbal processing in a meeting, you should probably, a way to build under that weakness is note cards.
Right.
Before the meeting, write down the 5 things you want to accomplish and the wording you want to use. Verbiage is important. It happened yesterday. There was a conflict yesterday in our staff meeting.
Yeah.
We're planning this rhythm marriage conference. Well, whenever I first was planning everybody's job assignments in Felix's, I put, you're going to be part of check-in.
Right.
But we're not having check-in. We're having a registration table at the Rhythm Marriage Conference. But the verbiage was wrong. I said, we're not having check-in. Well, he started getting flustered. He's like, well, you put on here check-in. And I'm like, I redefined it and I never communicated with him. So we just had to say, well, actually check-in means registration because we're not checking in because of something special we're doing. And so I think having a note card with what you're trying to accomplish and checking them off as you go. And there's nothing wrong. I always tell people in communication class, there's nothing wrong with having notes. Notes are not a bad thing. Notes keep you on track.
Yeah. Thank God
so
for notes.
Have note cards when you're leading people. Even I remember Pastor Rick, your uncle, used to have note cards whenever he used to meet with me.
Yeah.
Because during the week he'd be thinking, oh, I got to mention this. Oh, I got to mention this.
Yeah.
And because we're trying to accomplish something.
Yeah, I feel so understood when you talk about him. Like I'm like, wow, oh my gosh, I'm not alone.
Yes, you can succeed.
Yeah,
and so I think note cards is probably the best way to build under that weakness of communication because what you do by preparing a note card, you're slowing down.
Yeah,
you're actually. Guys like me and you who fly by the seat of our pants are like, I ain't got to prepare for this meeting.
Yeah,
and we can get by, and people are gonna be like, oh, that was a great meeting.
Right.
But is it efficient?
They don't, and they may not understand what the takeaway was. So even if they felt connected to as a person or whatever, they may not have that one thing you needed to walk away with or the 5 things. So
one of the best compliments that your grandpa, Pastor Larry, has given me is he said, every time I speak with a microphone, it's concise and people know the direction we're trying to go.
Yeah.
And he asked me in a staff meeting one time, he said, do you do that on purpose? And I said, yes, I plan out. So when I preach on Sunday morning, I said this on the Leadership Podcast before, when I preach on a Sunday morning, you will find me at the church house on Saturday night around 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Preaching my messages.
I'm 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on every Saturday that I preach. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to do that because I have a tendency, or people have a tendency, to say with 10 words, which should have been said with 1.
Yeah.
And I want to get the language right and where people, that takeaway, like you said,
right.
Why are we here and what are we accomplishing and what do I want people to leave with?
Right.
And if it's too muddy, people are like, I hate when whenever I used to get off stage, I used to do this in youth when I was youth pastor.
Yeah.
Great message. What'd I preach on? I don't know, but it was good. And it's just like, then what the?
So energetic.
Yeah.
Great story.
Yeah. Oh my God, you look like a dancing chicken. but what was the point of being up there?
Yeah.
And that's why we just had, I can say her name, not her full name, but we just had Michaela here who was in my youth group. She's a missionary now. And she was the one I always gauged because she was always so brilliant and so smart. I'm like, if she can know what I'm preaching about, then the rest of I used her as a gauge about my communication.
Or mainly, if she doesn't know what you're talking about, then nobody else must know what you're talking about.
And so maybe that's another key to build on your to grow on your weakness is have a ally in that meeting in your staff who you can go to be like, hey, this is what I wanted to communicate. Did I do that?
For sure. Yeah, that. And so just having your takeaways in mind so you can filter through, I don't need to talk about this. This is what I need transferred today in communication, especially, I mean, other than having ourselves right in our own personal vision, all this stuff, like that's probably the most, like one of the most important things you need as a leader. How are you going to lead people if they don't know where you're going? Like, and so that's something I have had extreme focus on, and I'm still not great at it yet, but I have a calendar now. Felix lives by the calendar. He taught me basically you can have your whole life on a calendar. So everything I do is on my calendar. And see, I just went through another rabbit trail and I don't know the way back. but what I'm saying is I need structure in my life to pretty much help me communicate, figure out where I need to go and all these things. So
and that would help with the procrastination.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely does.
I am
so many reminders.
I'm a checklist guy.
Yeah.
I'm a goal guy. I like goals. I like accomplished. Like doing triathlons, I love it, dude. Like
Yeah.
I get a training plan on Sunday that tells me what I'm doing for the week.
Yeah.
And it's literally a check. And if I don't do it, it shows up red in the app.
Yeah.
If I do it halfway or wrong, it shows up orange.
Dang.
And if I do it right, it shows up green.
See.
So the goal is to get all greens.
Yeah. I'm not there yet. I'm like, everything's on the calendar. I just have to do this today. And because I'm the type of person who, like, when I write everything down on a checklist, because I can't just do the things I have to do for work. I'm like, I need to put Roman to sleep at 7 p.m. I can't just put down specific things when I have my checklist. It's like, if I'm making a checklist, it's all going on there. Like,
well, there is like the 2003. I read a psychology report in college that talked about there is something that goes on to your brain. Maybe it releases what's that chemical that gives you, like dopamine, endorphin. It's where whenever you make a checklist and you check something off, it actually re-energizes you for the next one. Yeah. And so I truly believe in making.
Just took a breath of fresh air when you said that. I was like, oh.
I really feel like making a checklist. And I remember there was a guy named Eric Lawson. He was the assistant youth pastor at Church on the Move at 180 Youth Ministry. Probably one of the top 5 communicators I've ever been around. Really? And he talked about the power of the checklist. And he had this whenever they had like 100 interns, and he was teaching on checklist. He said, and he made a joke, and it's a leaders meeting that we're in, like 50 people. And he said, there are some days where you're just so like in a rut that you can't get nothing done. He said, put on your checklist, go to the bathroom.
Right. Yeah. Brush your teeth.
And check it off and just get that energy going, the confidence, like, hey, I can do this. Yeah. And he said, and he recommended scheduling out throughout the hours. Like not putting it all to the end of the day because then you feel rush. Yeah. And so that helped me with my procrastination because I'm very procrastination when it comes to preaching messages. When it comes to studying for tests, it's last minute, bro.
Oh my gosh.
Because I feel like I'm the best at it.
I used to, in high school, I used to study for tests, like really cram in for tests the class before I took the test. Like that's how much. See, I just really love the thrill and excitement of like, oh my gosh, I may not be able to make this deadline. But you know, my life is thrilling. Just want y'all to know.
But what's crazy is like there are studies that show if you write it down, and you do it the night before and you sleep on it, you will retain all that information.
And I really, especially for messages, I do that. Like, it's on my calendar. Every Wednesday, I actually start writing my message because I preach almost every Sunday now in kids ministry. But so the Wednesday before Sunday, I'll begin prepping my message. And by Thursday, I have it totally complete. But when I'm preaching in main stage, it's just more people, bigger room. Right. Like I have to have my thoughts collected because I'll see people.
It's a bigger stage.
Think from Lakers to Fish. Yeah, literally. So I have to prep like probably a solid week minimum in advance. And I'm the type of person, when I'm preaching to that many people, I actually have a checklist on my notes. Like 1, 2, 3. I don't have to read from it. I just have to look at it and be like, okay, that's where I go next. Because again, I'm the type of person who like tell the punchline way too early in a joke, and I'm like, stop, be in order, please. Like,
gotcha. Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up. All right, so procrastination, organization, communication. So communication, what's your practical steps that you're going to start implementing now?
Have your takeaway in mind.
Have your takeaway in mind?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I focus on
right now. So that's going to grow under your weakness.
Yes.
So in 6 months from now, if we've refilmed this, if we film another episode, we're going to ask how that, and I'm going to ask your wife, how's that going?
Perfect.
All right, so your procrastination. How are we going to work on that one? How are you going to work on that?
I don't know, man. It's impossible. No, I'm kidding.
Womp, womp, womp.
Honestly, my calendar, like I have to put things, I either have to text people right away, like respond, Dakota knows this, but like if I don't respond right away to a text message, I see it and then click out of it and I never think of it again. And so I have to either text people right away, urgent, or put it on my calendar urgently, especially if it's not the right time or whatever. I don't need to do it yet, send the email yet. I have to, in the moment, stop what I'm doing and put it on my calendar. So planning ahead immediately, when instead of like waiting,
Right.
or even planning ahead the day you're going to complete it. Set a deadline for yourself.
Yeah. So
Deadlines. Yeah.
Okay. I live by deadlines. We talked about this in staff meeting yesterday when someone's like, hey, can you just get that when you can? I'm never going to get to
Yeah.
it.
Because, right.
It's going to out of sight, out of mind. But if you're like, hey, this has to be done by 11 p.m. today.
Yeah.
Like for wedding films, editing wedding films,
Right.
I can get them done fast.
Yeah.
If I put them on the calendar.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, hey, I think I got a wedding film to edit, and it just one thing pops up, because there's always something screaming at you.
Yeah.
And so I need to make sure that the things that are screaming at me aren't taking my time.
Yeah.
Vampires, they want to suck your time. And there are people vampires.
Yeah.
And there's also thing vampires. And so that's why I have to organize my time
For sure.
like that. And so, and that plus will help the organization.
Yeah.
Because the more you don't procrastinate, the more time you'll have.
Right.
And when you think about that, time is the one energy source that you will never get back.
Yeah.
Like that scares me.
Yeah.
And you only get 24 hours in a day. Like, there's no more.
Right.
And once it's gone, it's gone. It's not a renewable resource.
Right.
Time is gone. There will never be an August 16th, 2022 at
I almost said 2021. Yeah.
11:20.
Yeah.
There'll never be another one. It's gone. Oh, time's a ticking. And so that humbles me and also energizes me to be like, I got to redeem that. When Brecken left for school this morning, I go, Carpe diem, bro. And he goes, yes, sir. And I was like, Carpe diem seize the day. And like,
gotcha.
You didn't know what Carpe diem
That took a second. Slow moving wheels up here. See, I'm
Carpe
thinking about
diem
other
was
stuff.
from a movie in the 80s and 90s that
What is
really
that
made
from?
it popular.
I've heard it before.
I mean, it's a Latin saying Carpe diem.
Right, like I've heard it before.
But it's Robin Williams when he was teaching the writing, the poetry class, I think. Cannot remember
What is
the
this,
name
Dead
of it.
Poets Society or
Yes.
something? I've never seen the movie. The name just really stuck out to me. I was like, that's
Carpe diem, man.
Interesting name.
And so I told my sons that, like, seize the day, because this is the only day that this is it, and we got to live life to the fullest.
Seize the day.
Seize the day. And so I believe that's such a leadership thing to do, is like to make the most of every moment. And and here's why we do this. Let's recalibrate for a moment. This is why we do this. We are leaders. Yep. We're influencers, and our job is to influence the world in whatever arena we can, because we have the true message and the true light, the message of Christ.
Yeah.
So our job is to influence people. And just think, whenever you build under these weaknesses, imagine who you're going to be able to help grow out of these weaknesses. You get what I'm saying? Like you'll be able to say, hey, I was the guy who was a young leader who was just, and now look at you now.
That's actually one more thing I wanted to add to when I was thinking about my strengths earlier. I think naturally I always have the why I do things out in the forefront of my mind. Like Simon Sinek wrote about that in the book. But I remember thinking, like, doing odd jobs and stuff, like constantly thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I doing? Oh, I'm saving up enough money, for school to start or whatever. And so everything I do, I feel like stays at the forefront of my mind, that why. And so as leaders, being like, what's the point of growing in these things, so that the why you do things, like why are you leading? What are you leading towards, all these things? I think having the why out in front is something I'm naturally good at. And I want to encourage anyone listening to, if you don't have that in front, all this is pretty much, I mean, what are you aiming for then? And so, anyways.
Because we're not doing it just for ourselves.
Right.
We're always doing it for a bigger cause, a bigger purpose. And so, yes, will this bless you to grow into your weaknesses?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. You'll be a better person. And that's part of what we do. And you'll be able to influence more people. And and when you grow your influence, you grow, the world grows, the kingdom grows. So, yeah, good times. All right. Well, thanks for letting us dissect you.
Yeah, that was fun. Not as bad as I thought it would be.
Oh, I wasn't.
I'm just glad, like, the people that you called, we were in sync. Like that. Oh, that would have been so embarrassing if they had like 10 ones that I didn't talk about. That would have been quite a shock.
Jess never brushes his teeth. No, I'm just kidding.
Do.
I'm just kidding. No. That wasn't what she said. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Leadership Podcast. And honestly, I would love if there was a way for. I know we post these on YouTube as well, so maybe comment.
Yeah.
I would love to know how you're growing under your weakness,
Yeah.
or what's some challenges you may have, because we have people at our church who actually have businesses,
Right.
who help businesses grow under their weakness.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, I'm going to get her on the podcast one day. I think that would be good. She's actually going to come in and help our staff too pretty soon. So anyway, we have resources at the church that can help you as well. So feel free to reach out, to hit the email up, contact, comment, thumbs up, smash that subscribe button. I'm not gonna say that.
Classic YouTube statement. Yeah.
Hey, pause in for a moment. Why don't you hit that thumbs up? And if you, I heard this the other day. If you dislike it, to really dislike it, you hit the dislike thumbs down twice. If you really dislike it.
Nice.
You know what that does?
Does it turn into a like?
No, it unclicks it, so it never shows up as a dislike.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
clever.
So anyway, but that's it for Leadership Podcast, and we will see you on the next one.